Alrighty then, it is 38 degrees outside. For a southern girl, that is cold, people. So, anywho, I'm only down to 2 quarts of my November 2013 canned stew. One of the things I love about home canning is how quick this can become a meal. I did almost everything but the peas, grew almost everything except the peas and the carrots in here, because I like me some Le Sueur Petit Pois peas. I don't like much about the French, but they are righteous with some peas. But my favorite thing about it is, with dehydrated rice that I would just pour some boiling water into, I would rehydrate rice. I either cook too much rice or too little rice. It's all or nothing. So once I got a dehydrator, being able to dehydrate it is perfect. So if we have a night where we want stew, it's nothing to me to rehydrate some of this with hot water for about 20 minutes. Open this jar. If I need more liquid, I'd pour in some of my own beef broth or tomato sauce. To me, having stew is right up there with having some home canned chicken soup. And this is from September of 2012, back when Ball made the jars lids that I trusted more and liked, and that last a long time. So all I have to do when I open a thing of chicken soup is add maybe a quart of my own chicken stock, or a pint, just depends on what's in there. But that is a beautiful thing jarred. So I am going to use the Ball book, but I'm going to use my own stew recipe that I like. I am going to brown my meat, but I'm not going to put flour on it. So it's not hard. I'm going to do this in the crock pot because I only have about 2 pounds of meat, but it's dead easy to do it simmering on your stove all day. So having stew on hand, you cannot beat this for a ready-made meal. So I'm going to, with only 2 quarts left, I'm going to see how many quarts I get out of this, but I'll show you as I put it together. It's just stew, it ain't hard, and it's just canning. And if I follow safe canning procedures, because there's meat in this, and I follow the basics of what's in here for vegetable or beef stew with vegetables, I got it made. But I'm going to do my own recipe. Now, I don't use any flour, and I'm going to brown it in just a tiny amount of oil and some of my own beef stock. So the first thing I start with my crock pot, and I've got it on high, is 2 pints of my beef broth. Get it to the side, yeah. It's not totally dark, if that helps you see what it looks like. I may need more, if so I have more. That's the joy of being a canner. So I have my 2 pounds of stew beef, or stew meat, over here. I put a tiny amount of oil and a little bit of beef broth. There's no flour on it, notice, because I'm going to can this. I've got some pepper on it and a very limited amount of sauce. Salt, not sauce. So I don't put a whole lot of pepper because the canning process seems to intensify things. But now I'll get to chopping my onions. I've got my peas and corn out. It ain't hard, it's just beef stew. But it's good. So I've got about 1 medium and 1 small onion chopped in my broth. And I put celery in mine, but I freeze my celery. I grow my celery, and it takes a long time to grow celery. It's not the big thick stalks you get. So this is about a ½ cup. So I'm going to drop that in there too. And then I'm going to put my beef that I have browned into my potter. And I'm going to do 2 fresh tomatoes and chop them up and put them in there also. So I have my celery, onions, tomatoes, and my stew meat in here, and my home beef broth. And I hear what you're thinking. Ooh, bro, that is not looking so good. Give it a minute. We ain't done. Got to get some of my home canned tomato sauce. It's going to happen. Simmer down, simmer down. It's not gross. It's going to work out fine. So we're going to rock a pint, or a pint, as my niece calls it, from July 25th, 2013. Totally secure, lids on. Sweet sound. Right in the pot, yeah. Now it's looking better. Admit it. It's not gross. It's looking gooder. Mucho mejor. Starting to happen. And I've got this on high, and I'll do that for about an hour and a half. Then I'll put it on low. It's 11:30, so it's got a long way to cook and get tender. And my experience with meat in the pressure canner, off the chain tender. Bad pieces of meat do well in there. So it's going to rock. Alrighty then, I ended up needing to add another pint of beef broth. No problem, I'm a canner, I had it. And I chopped up some carrots. I love the Vidalia Chop Wizard for carrots because they're like the thugs of the vegetable world. And just for like dehydrating them as well, it makes little uniform size pieces. So I really like it. Just have to be careful not to break it. It is plastic. So I've got carrots. I will be adding potatoes, but not till about an hour and a half before I'm ready to can it. And I put in a jar of stewed tomatoes that a friend canned, and I think I traded her something for those. I just don't make good stewed tomatoes in the canning process, so find a friend to trade with. And listen, if you don't can, I ain't mad at you. Use commercial beef broth. It ain't no big thing. Tomato sauce, those sorts of things. But a stew is a fabulous thing to have on hand and ready to go for a quick, substantial meal. And this will feed a lot of people. If I were to go to jar this and it were very thick, I could add some more tomato sauce. Let's say I only had a jar or a quart. I can thin that out for a large group of people if need be with some of my beef broth, with some of my tomato sauce. So it's very versatile and a great thing to have on your shelf. It's right up there with chicken soup because you do not want to be sick and trying to make your own. Okay, so this is going to sit on high for another hour and 15 minutes. Of course, I'm going to cover it. And then I'll set it on low and let it do its thing. Just canning, people. Beef stew with vegetables. So my stew has been stewing about 5 hours, so I have added some potatoes now. And I am still on low, and I will tell you this is beyond delicious. So the only thing I have added is basil and thyme. And I mean the sauce of this. I don't know, maybe that's the stew part. I don't know. It is so good. So I'm going to wait till these potatoes get semi-tender, and then I'll process them. But you can see the onion, carrots, celery, stewed tomatoes. These are going to be good. So I shall return when it's time to can. And the stew goes on. Alrighty then. It is now 6:09 p.m. and my stew has stewed. And this is some amazingly delicious stew. Do not get between me and my fork on this one. So now I'm going to can it up. Now, I'm guesstimating that this is maybe I've got 5 lids and 5 quarts done. Like, you can do the math and figure out how many quarts this is, and then you'll know how many quarts you need. I don't roll like that. If it turns out to be more, so I get more jars hot and more lids hot. That ain't hard. So my canner is on low over there on my super burner. And now, I'm going to start to fill my jars. And I have wax paper down so I don't liquefy my toes like molten lava. My jar is warm. This is warm, but it's not hot. I turned it off. I don't like putting it in there when it's burning hot. I've never had a jar break like that. But so it's going to be 1 inch ahead space. And because these are quarts, they're going to process for 90 minutes. I'm still going to use my Pokey Joe and swirl this all around to get any air out. And I'm using my Orchard Road cannon lids because I would like this to last. Because as you saw, I've got 2 jars of stew from 2013. There's no guarantee I'll eat something in a year. I want my food storage to last. So I'm going to wipe my rim with some vinegar on a rag, get my lids on, and start processing. You know the rest because you're canners. You know. I mean, check it out. That's all that is left in this big crock pot. Well, I got a shadow there. Sorry, it's dark because, you know, when you cook something all day, you get to canning it dark. So I got exactly 5 quarts with 1 inch of headspace. How bugging is that? See, math is for sissies. It just worked out. Worst thing that could have happened would I would have needed another jar, or I'd have had a jar and a warm lid left over. How cool is that? Even though this is the only thing I'm canning today, I still make a piece of paper, or write on it, quarts. I needed 1 inch of headspace. It needs to go for 90 minutes. So I'm put the lid on my canner, get it venting for 10. I write that down. Then when I actually reach the pressure that I need, you need to check the pressure for your area, I write that time down as well as set a timer. I do not want to have done all this, use meat on sale, if I'm just going to mess up and think, oh, after 75 minutes instead of 90, that I could make a mistake. So it just helps me to be safer. Ain't nothing wrong with that. So for those with the Presto, I call that a petcock. I don't know what it's called, but it is up. So now I'll start my 10-minute time and letting it vent. And I've got my fan on so we don't get a facial. And I wrote down the time that my 10 minutes started as well as having a timer. As I've told you before, I had a timer fail and had to start over in my countdown. And that's a little irritating. And because this is going a full 90 minutes, so I'm just not going to let this, I call it the dial gauge, I'm not going to let it show any pressure as it's venting for 10. Then, I don't like what came with the Presto. So this is, you can get on Amazon. This is 10 pounds. That's correct for my area. If I needed 15, then there would be 2 of these, the little circle that's floating around. So once I get 10 minutes vent, this is going to go over that, bring myself up to 11 pounds of pressure, and then I'm going to keep it there for 90 minutes. And I do not leave my kitchen when my canner is rocking. Just ain't happening. So I'm rocking along. I'm going 90 minutes. Got my timer set to 60. I wrote down the time that it started so there can be no error. And this is how my little dooflachi jiggles along. It's like the little dance. I love it. So much better than the one that came with the Presto. So all's good in my canning hood. Stew is happening in that pressure canner. Oh yeah. So there they are, after 90 minutes, and of course letting the canner rest. 5 beautiful quarts of beef and vegetable stew. I absolutely love the canning process. It's like mad science in your kitchen. And it's still boiling away. Peas are floating around. Just amazing that it can even be done. And the fact that the science is so old. And it works. Food storage. Can't beat it. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh. And thanks again to Willow's Garden, W-I-L-L-O-W-S, next word garden, G-A-R-D-E-N, for finding the Orchard Road canning lids and, of course, jars. They're made the way that Ball and Kerr used to be made, and I get 100% seal rate with them. Love them. Thanks, Willow's Garden. Keeping our food storage secure. Can't go wrong. Love them.